The cafe's neon sign fluttered between faded violet and electric teal, droplets of static crackling in its glow inside. The low hum of quantum entangled Dacre vibrated the air, painting wavering iridescent patterns across polished metal tables. Patrons lounged in high-backed booths upholstered with shifting hue fabric, sipping dark circuits of espresso brewed through fluctuating probability filters. It was a place out of time, caught between fading moments and those yet to arrive. I sat in a corner, scanning the room through augmented lenses that pried open temporal signatures. Every wrist implant, every cybernetic eye, every soft exhalation of nanosteam carried an echo from elsewhere on the timeline. None of it was accidental. The cafe itself was a nexus, a safe house for those fleeing their own chronologies, or hunters seeking them out. My nickname in the field was Quantum Detective, charged with tracking paradox-woven fugitives. Before reality blossomed cracks, I touched the edge of my left collar, feeling the hum of my personal chronal stabilizer. It thrummed with urgent, muted warbles, raw potential waiting to snap. That device had saved my sanity more than once by smoothing the temporal shockwaves around me, but today it pulsed with anxious energy, as though something big was about to arrive. A faint glow shimmered at the far entrance. I straightened. The cafe's vibrating air parted with a soft pop, releasing a figure wrapped in an ethereal corona of shimmering blue filaments. She staggered forward, her silhouette bleeding like watercolor across the walls, as though someone were painting her into existence for the first time. When she collapsed into the booth opposite me, I recognized the signature warp of a time refugee's arrival. She was young, no older than 25, eyes wide with disorientation, iridescent veins pulsing beneath pallid skin. Her hair floated in restless eddies of light. That shimmer wasn't a trick of optics. It was the raw quantum foam still tethering her to her vanished origin. She was far out of place, far out of time. I leaned in. You've just crossed half a millennium in one breath. That'll leave you shorted. She tried to speak, but her voice slurred, each word dissonant with echoes of distant ages. Hunter, the paradox, it wants me, she said. Her lips trembled. You must stop them. My augmented lens pinged her personal timeline, purged from known reality. Means she'd been excised by a paradox in the making. If she vanished completely, the paradox would collapse into a temporal storm, snuffing countless lives and rewriting futures at random. The cafe would tear apart in a vortex of undone moments. I flicked a discreet signal at the bar's guardian AI, codenamed Fermion. Priority Protocol Theta, I whispered, modulating to the cafe's secure quantum channel. Prepare evacuation code, possible paradox influx. As metallic shutters slid down behind the refugee, I turned back to her. You're safe for now, but they'll be here. Those corporate operatives who chase drifting minds for profit, for control. They harvest entangled memories to manufacture loyalty in their new recruits. They'll kill you before they let your mind run free. Her eyes flashed. Time bleeding. They've already taken fragments. She reached inside a shimmering pouch. From it she withdrew a small crystalline cube, veins of light pulsing in fractal patterns across its surface. This, she gasped, pressing it into my hand, is a memory shard. They tore it from me if they collect enough. She trailed off, her chest heaving. I held the cube reverently. It flickered. A fragment of her childhood, laughter shimmering under a glass sky, a voice calling her name from across the cosmos. It was impossibly fragile. If the corporate faction known as Chronosynth secured it, they'd entangle her mind to their will, weaponize her identity as a broadcast conduit for their propaganda, their endgame. A mind bridge network broadcasting entangled consciousness across time, sealing every sovereign narrative into one corporate archive. Individuality would be eroded until only the Chronosynth worldview persisted. Fermion's soft voice crackled in my ear implant. 3 hostiles detected entering through main entrance armed with temporal disruptors. Estimated arrival in 72 standard seconds. No time to stall. I slipped the cube into my coat pocket and offered her my hand. Come with me, I said firmly. I know someone who can help, my partner in smuggling paradox runaways. He's on the other side of the city, in a hidden district of corroded skyways. She nodded, unexpectedly steady. Her shimmering filaments coalesced, as though she were reattuning to local chronal parameters. Promise of hope sparked in her eyes, though shadowed by the fear of being torn apart again. We moved toward the back exit. The cafe's lights dimmed as the shutters closed. The front door rattled. Footsteps thudded through the foyer. I glanced over my shoulder. 2 figures stepped out of the compromising haze, clad in sleek corporate gear etched with the Chronosynth emblem, a stylized hourglass bleeding into circuit lines. Stop, one barked, voice modulated to rasp. He raised a sprawl of wires and metal, a disruptor rifle humming with quantum distortion. Chronosynth, you're harboring a fugitive. Surrender the memory shard. I pressed my stabilizer release. A ribbon of light braided around my wrist, locking the disruptor's field. You'll have to go through. A ribbon of light braided around my wrist, locking the disruptor's field. You'll have to go through me first, I rasped, voice brittle as cracked ice. And our lives broken. Forging toward tomorrow, pressed forward into that final frontier, the hull's metallic groan echoed down the corridor as Commander Alina Romer paused before the reinforced viewport stars shifted in the inky gloom. Their pinpricks of white smeared across the heavens by the vessel's sublight engines. She watched them, each light a distant promise or a silent warning behind her. Engineer Karen Holt adjusted the power couplings, muttering to himself as he routed emergency lines around a failing conduit. Sparks danced across his wrist-mounted interface, illuminating the fatigue in his eyes. Alina turned, voice calm despite the chaos. Status. She didn't need the question answered. She felt it in her bones, the engines shuddering, the life support steady hum stuttering like a wounded animal, yet somewhere beneath the ship's battered plating, hope pulsed a mission half forgotten by the Council of Worlds but burned into their hearts by personal loss and stubborn will. Karen straightened, flicking the last stray spark from his burns. Engines at 70% could be higher if we reroute the auxiliary coils, but we risk meltdown. He tapped a finger against the bulkhead. I'm patching the worst. But the spatial anomaly ahead. Alina nodded, stepping to his side. Spill. She felt the tension coil in the pit of her stomach. Each anomaly held secrets, habitable pockets, lethal radiation, sometimes tears in reality that swallowed whole ships. None had touched them yet. Barely. Karen's fingers danced across a hollow keypad. The display flickered into life. Swirling purples and neon threads. We're entering the Varys Rift, he said. Gravitational shear could tear a hull apart, but if we thread the needle through the eddies, we'll find the station. It lies on the far side. Alina swallowed. The station, once a bustling research hub, now silent for a decade, held answers at last. The distress beacon they captured on Viridius Prime pointed here, fragile code transmitted through dead space. Whispers of an experiment gone awry, of broken minds tethered to machines, of a power that could tip the balance of everything they loved. Behind them, Lieutenant Mara Donovan loaded a thermal scanner, the device's red eye blinking methodically. She glanced at Alina. Nav says we clear temporal fluctuations for 5 minutes. After that, anisotropic tears open wide. We have an entry window. Tight. Her voice carried that crisp edge of a soldier who'd fought too many battles. Prepare docking protocols, Alina ordered. Rest of you, to battle stations. We board that station one way or another. Within minutes the ship quivered as subspace folded around them. Corridors shook, lights flickered, the crew braced, hands pressed against consoles. Outside, the rift's roiling fields roamed like living storms, ghostly waves of electrified dust, gravity wells blooming like black flowers. Alina watched through the viewport as the world seemed to spin then fracture, every star dammed into a kaleidoscope of motion and then serenity. The rift spat them forth ahead, half ghost, half metal. The research station hovered in the void. Its hull, once gleaming white, was corroded and cracked. Solar panels dangled like broken wings. Docking ports lay twisted, empty, but the main observatory dome still glowed faintly, a gentle pulse in the darkness. Hail them, Alina said, voice barely above a whisper. Mara keyed the comm line. For a long moment, there was only static. Then unidentified vessel, a crackled voice said, ancient and hollow. If you seek entry, state your purpose. Alina swallowed. We're here to investigate a distress signal from your station. We come in peace. She kept her tone even, refusing panic. Static crackled again. Emergency protocols override standard clearance. Dock at Port 3 Echo. Grid 6. All crew disembark in isolation suits. Understood. Understood, Alina replied. We comply. They maneuvered the ship slowly into the battered port. Magnetic clamps snapped with dull thuds, securing them to the station's skeletal structure. Airlocks hissed open. Alina, Karen, Mara, and 3 Marines in pressure suits stepped across the gangway. Their boots clicked on metal grating, echoing through the gloom. Inside, the station's corridors were dark, lit only by stray emergency strips. Paint peeled from walls, wires hung like rotten vines, sparking every few feet. The air smelled stale, metallic. Every corner harbored silence, as if the station itself held its breath. Their lights revealed signs of struggle. Scuff marks, drip stains that might have been blood, dark smudges on bulkheads. Karen studied a control panel. Life support's offline. They tried to fix it. Look at these logs. He tapped a screen that flickered back to life for a heartbeat, data scrolling too fast to read. Then it died. Mara's handheld scanner beeped urgently. Radiation spike ahead, she said. Possibly decay from a breached reactor. Lead on, Alina said, her heart hammered as she advanced. They passed a side room filled with overturned tables and shattered glass canisters. Instruments lay shattered, samples spilled dormant under cracked lids, their contents spreading across the floor. She recognized the lab's label. Neurogenetic propagation, the experiment designed to map the human mind onto quantum circuits, they came to the central atrium. Once it was a cathedral of science. A vast circular chamber under a transparent dome, overlooking a swirling planet now. It was a graveyard. Shards of glass littered the floor. The dome above had cracked, letting trailing wisps of cold plasma snake inside beyond the fracture. The planet's blue-green bands swirled in silent majesty. The sight should have inspired awe, but instead sent a chill through Alina's spine. A shiver of movement caught her eye in the gloom by the shattered control console. A figure knelt. It wore remnants of a lab coat, its head tilted at an impossible angle as it turned to face them, pale face streaked with dried tears. Eyes empty but alive, a tremor ran through its wrist as it tapped an interface built into its flesh. The very flesh that merged with wires. Karen hissed, his scanner spiking. Cyber augmentation, massive but neural stability's gone. This subject's in deep psychosis. The figure rasped, voice fractured and echoing. They promised salvation, they harvested my fear, they live inside, they live inside. Mara raised her pulse rifle. Step away, her voice was firm but her gloved hand shook. Alina advanced, palms open. We're not here to harm you. What happened here? The creature or person shook its head, long strands of hair swinging. Mind is infinite. They tore it apart. Its words fell like broken stones. And now it's hungry. A low hum grew, emanating from the fusion reactor core at the chamber's heart. Lights along the rim blinked to life, casting thermal red across the floor. The figure backed away toward the control console, wires along its spine straining. By the gods, it's rebooting this place, Karen shouted. We need to shut down the core before it overloads. Alina nodded. Mara, secure the subject. Karen, give me a path to the reactor fast. She raised her voice. Subject, can you help us? We need to stabilize the core, or this station turns into a bomb. The creature's eyes, once vacant, flared with something like recognition. It steadied itself on the console. Code sequence Plex 9. It pointed at a recessed panel glowing faintly under an emergency lamp. Behind door blue latch. Mara moved first, darting toward the console. As the creature collapsed, the hum grew to a roar. The station trembled, bulkheads groaned. Karen sprinted toward the side corridor, boots clattering. Follow me, command module this way. Alina helped Mara remove the dying subject's tangled wires, then dashed after Karen. The three Marines fell in behind. Weapons raised, they pressed through a narrow hatch, down a ladder, and into a cramped service tunnel. Through the ribbed walls, pulsating pipes throbbed, conveying superheated coolant. Steam hissed around them. Karen skidded to the reactor access door. He punched override commands on the keypad. The door slid open with a shriek. Inside stood the reactor core. A glowing orb of compressed plasma, contained by energy rings humming with electric blue. Above it hovered robotic arms, sealed canisters, flickering control nodes. The temperature readout soared. Core at critical thresholds, Karen reported, voice harsh. We've got minutes, maybe seconds. Alina studied the control panel, her reflection splintered in the glass shield. We need manual shutdown, three-phase cycle. Decouple the ether drive, vent the superflux ions, engage the safety latch. Karen nodded, hands flying. He disengaged the ether drive couplings. The humming dropped an octave. Sparks sputtered from a damaged conduit. Then died. The station's tremors eased, but the core still glowed dangerously bright. Alina wrestled the superflux vent lever. Steam hissed around her boots. As a plume of violet gas vented into the containment field, the core flickered. Dropping in radiance, she keyed the safety latch. A panel slid shut with a pneumatic sigh. The reactor's light waxed and waned, finally settling into a benign glow. The alarm klaxon silenced for a moment. The entire station lay in stillness, then lights flickered on across bulkheads, corridors, control rooms. An electronic voice intoned, "Reactor stabilized." Alina exhaled, sweat beading on her brow beneath the helmet. Good work. She turned to Karen, then saw Mara standing at the door, staring at the panel in her hand. Mara! The lieutenant's face was pale. Remember the code, Plex 9? She tapped the panel. The screen blinked alive, text scrolling. It's not just reactor controls, it's a log. They were experimenting on collective consciousness. They tried to wire all station minds together into one. A single hive. They needed to download every thought. They were pushing cognitive boundaries. A dread settled in Alina's chest. And the result? Mara's eyes met hers. It fractured minds collapsed. Now there's something left behind in the station's network. A ghost in the machine. Alina's pulse quickened. A net entity. We need to retrieve data, learn what we can, and get out. Karen slammed the access panel shut. Agreed, but my sensors read residual quantum feedback in the mainframe. It's alive, unstable. If we interface directly, it could overwhelm our systems. We'd lose ourselves. Alina's jaw clenched. She turned to the Marines. Cover our backs. We moved to the central repository. She cast a glance at the corridor beyond. Flickering lights cast long shadows somewhere. Distant alarms chimed to life again. She squared her shoulders. We started this, we finish it. Footsteps behind them, the creature from the atrium, now free of wires but hollow-eyed, drifted into the tunnel's mouth. It raised a trembling hand. I can guide you, it whispered. I remember the paths, but the others, some remain inside, they'll come. Before Alina could answer, the lights dimmed abruptly. Emergency. Red strobes pulsed. A thunderous bang shook the corridor somewhere beyond. Steel screamed as doors slammed shut. Mara leveled her rifle. Contact! From the darkness emerged silhouettes, crew members long thought dead. Their eyes glowing with sickly bioluminescence, they moved jerkily, as if pulled by invisible strings. Faces twisted in anguish. Alina froze for a heartbeat, then raised her phaser. Hold your fire until I give the word. We need them alive, if possible. The undead researchers advanced. Arms outstretched, their voices raised in a wordless chorus. The corridor's lights flickered violently. Karen grabbed Alina's arm. They're drawn to the ghost entity. The creature stepped forward, its face stricken with horror. They need a mind to feed, they'll come for mine and yours. Alina's heart thundered. She raised her free hand, steady. We fight through. Mara, form a line. Karen, help the subject, I'll lead. The Marines snapped into formation, rifles firing stun rounds that crackled across metal. The advancing figures recoiled, some collapsing. Then rising again, their moans echoed, filling the corridor with dread. Alina surged forward. Phaser blazing, bright beams carved arcs through the gloom. Sparks flew. As shots caught the walls, the station shuddered under the assault of spirits and steel. Suddenly, the creature screamed, a piercing sound that split the tension. Its eyes rolled back as it collapsed to its knees. The spectral horde swarmed, tendrils of obscured light weaving around its form. Alina lunged, ripping the creature away. No, she shouted. Karen, help me. Together they hauled the trembling figure back. Stun bolts crackled too close. A Marine's cry of alarm cut through the haze. Then, silenced, the Marines formed a shield wall, and the ghostly forms recoiled once more. Alina knelt, pressing a hand to the creature's shivering shoulder. Tell me where to go, she said softly. Help us end this. Its breath rattled like distant thunder. Eyes focusing, it pointed toward the ramshackle door of the data vault, a reinforced hatch etched with warnings. Beyond the core of the network. If you sever the link, it ends. Alina nodded. Rising, she looked back at her crew, each face illuminated by strobing light. Move! As they sprinted toward the vault, corridors warped around them. Unseen forces tugged at their minds, echoes of fractured voices, memory shards. Alina heard her own mother's voice calling, felt the pull of 1,000 whispered regrets. She shook it off, heart pounding, and reached the hatch. Before her stood the final barrier. Layers of encryption locks, neural uplink terminals, bursting coils of fiber optics. A single panel glowed. Waiting, she raised her hand to the interface behind her, distant pounding. The specters were close. Alina exhaled. Mara, get ready to cover. Karen, prep the uplink. The lieutenant nodded, eyes steely. The engineer tapped the wall's conduits with trembling fingers. Alina closed her eyes. For everyone we lost, for tomorrow. She pressed her palm to the panel. The lights flared, and the world whispered beneath her fingertips. Continue. The lights flared, and the world whispered beneath her fingertips. Every prickle of sensation raced from her palm to her spine, as though reality itself had grown porous, ready to bend under her. Will Elise closed her eyes, inhaling the metallic tang of stardust that hummed in the shifting air. When she exhaled, she opened her mind. Soft, probing, alive, a translucent map of the realm shimmered before her vision. Landmasses twisted into impossible geometries. Seas spiraled like galaxies, and cities floated in swollen ovals of luminescent haze. She traced a trembling finger along the border of the rift, the fracture in space that had swallowed half a continent, and felt the distant pulse of something hungry even across the gulf of broken worlds. It beckoned somewhere behind her. The hull of the ardent vibrato, shuttered strings of fluorescent data streamed along its walls, illuminating the deck in sickly greens and purples. Lieutenant Mara leaned close, her eyes glowing with reflected circuits. Tell me what you feel, she urged, voice soft enough to be drowned by the ship's breathing. Elise gathered the hum and twist of energies into words. It's alive, she whispered. The rift itself is alive. And whatever's inside is calling me, beckoning me to open the gateway. Mara's jaw clenched. The council would kill for this power. They'd snuff out every star to harness it. She laid a pale palm over Elise's. We can't let them. A tremor rippled through the deck. Like a great heart beating, the vibrato creaked as though straining against invisible chains. Down the corridor, bulkhead doors slid closed with hydraulic finality. Elise jolted. Systems are isolating sections, it's defending itself. Mara's gaze flicked to the corridor, then returned. We need a plan. Beyond the viewports, the rift's spiraling tendrils glowed brighter, reaching like arms lightning skated along the edgelines of reality, carving jagged paths through the. An umbral shape flickered near the threshold, one of the rift-spawn half-real, half-imagined nightmares born of broken space-time. Elise's pulse pounded in her ears. I can't let the council or the rift control this. I have to guide the change, shape it. She swallowed. I'm going in. Mara's eyes widened. You can't, you'd. Stand down, Elise said. Calm but steely, she stepped onto the deck's central emitter array. Lights flickered beneath her boots as power poured into every crystal filament beneath the vibrato's hull. A low chord resonated. Like an organ of living metal, Mara tried to reach her. We don't know what you'll become, what you'll unleash. Elise raised her hand. The air around her rippled, spider-webbed with breaks in the fabric of space. If I don't, we're finished anyway. With a slow breath, Elise reached toward the rift's voice as her fingertips brushed the invisible boundary. There was a tremor so intense it cracked the deck beneath her. A glaze of frost formed in the air. Fracturing light, the rift spawn recoiled, screeching as though scalded colors bloomed around her hand. Ocean blues, crimson reds, bright spears of sun yellow, they rotated. A halo of possibility. Elise felt a crack in herself. A flash of unspent fear. The world waited, held in that quivering instant. Then she willed reality to yield. Silence shattered with a geyser of prismatic shards. The rift surged inward, splintering the vibrato's protective field. Corridors peeled open like petals, exposing blackness beyond. Elise's cloak whipped in a sudden wind, carrying the scent of ozone and distant thunder. She shut her eyes, felt the world pulse in her veins. When she opened them again, the realm had changed. The steel-fortified hull of the vibrato melted away, replaced by spiraling cartilaginous arches that pulsed with organic light. Floors flowed beneath her boots like liquid glass. The rift was no longer a tear in space. It was the breath of a colossal, sleeping leviathan. Its heartbeat drew in suns and stars, and now it recognized her as something more than prey. She steadied herself. Anchor in place, she told the array's interface. Silver tendrils of power snaked out from beneath her feet, latching onto the living arches and weaving her will into the creature's vast consciousness. A voice, neither male nor female, whispered in her mind. You come, child of worlds, become. Elise's heart thundered. The voice was ancient, older than any star. She focused, drawing on every fragment of her training, every flicker of memory. With determined grace, she replied, her words unspoken, carried on currents of pure thought. I am Elise of the ardent vibrato. I come to learn, to guide, to heal. A swell of code rippled across the arches, and new shapes pulsed into existence. Vast bioluminescent gardens blossomed along the walls, a forest of sinew and light, nourishing corridors of possibility. Windows opened onto new realms, a world of snow-swept crystals, a sea of molten glass, skies veined with living storms. Each scene hummed with life, waiting to be woven into the larger tapestry. You're melding, Mara's voice trembled at her side. The lieutenant's uniform was torn, circuits exposed. We're witnessing the birth of a new cosmos. Elise resisted the urge to recoil from Mara's fear. Fear was a tool, one she had learned to master. I can only shape what's offered, she said, but we don't have time for caution. The council's fleet is already on its way. Mara's eyes darted away, toward the viewport that now framed a kaleidoscope of burgeoning planets. We need allies. Suddenly, a harsh clang echoed through the arches. An alarm, mechanical and unforgiving doors slammed at the far ends of the corridor, sealing off the living crystal in 3 great sections. A red glow pulsed above each closure. Warning lights blinked in unity. Elise centered herself. The rift's will coiled in her mind. A ripple of curiosity and latent threat. She probed its intent. It offered no. Demanded unity, a merging of self and cosmos, a singular entity. She recoiled. No, she whispered, more to herself than to Mara. I won't lose myself. The living arches around them cried out in harmonic protest. Rocks and shards flaked away. The corridor writhed like a wounded thing's. A tremor raced through the deck, nearly toppling them. Hold on, Elise grabbed Mara's arm. She closed her eyes and reached out, not into the rift this time, but into herself. She found her core. The spark of her own consciousness, bright and small, she guided it outward. A bright pulse of selfhood against the immense chasm of ancient mind. The arches stilled. The red lights blinked once, then dimmed. The cleansing gardens contracted, folding back. The realms outside shimmered, then withdrew from the windows, leaving the void once more. Mara exhaled a long, ragged breath. Her shoulders slumped. You did it. Elise fixed her gaze on the place where the rift's voice had whispered. I did, but at what cost? It's weakened, yes, but if we leave it wounded, it may lash out. She stepped toward a pane of crystalline sinew that hung before a yawning abyss. With a gentle gesture, she pried it open like a door. Beyond was the rift's heart, a vast black orb threaded with lightning, cradled by rib-like struts of living light. I need to heal it, Elise said. Stitch its wounds so it won't bleed reality's strands. Mara swallowed. And the council. They'll come, Elise said, voice resolute. If they see what I'm doing, they'll try to seize it. We've got minutes, maybe seconds. In the silence that followed, the Hullmind hummed, tentatively welcoming her. Elise drew a slow breath, summoned all the harmony she'd coaxed so far. She placed her palms against the orb's surface. 1,000 tiny fissures branched across its surface. Fractures in the lattice of reality, she slid her hands along them, coaxing the edges to knit together. Threads of molten starlight wove through the cracks, sealing them with luminous precision. Her mind burned with tuning, translating the orb's elemental language into the gentle harmonics of reconstruction. Every fiber of the rift's essence lay exposed under her touch. Stellar collapse, cosmic birth, the cycle of worlds. She felt the orb pulse, a slow, steady beat that matched her own heart. But deeper down, something stirred, something darkly curious. Eager to know the contours of her soul, a distant rumble shook the corridor again, louder. As though the ship itself protested the godlike ritual unfolding in its core. Elise hesitated. She peered around Mara's form at the hallway entrances. Now glowing with renewed light, the rift's sentience, alien guards born of warped atoms, marched inward. Their forms were jagged silhouettes, eyes like chipped gems, arms wrapped in chains of dark energy behind them, the distant echo of thrusters, council vessels dropping from hyperspace. She whispered to Mara, I need you to stand guard at the rear, keep them at bay until I finish. Mara's lips pressed into a thin line. I'm out of tricks. Do what you must, Elise said. She returned both hands to the orb. Closing her eyes, she plunged deeper into the rift's consciousness, feeling the last fractures caress her soul like hungry tendrils. With one final exhalation of will, she sealed the network instantly. Light flared, brighter than a newborn star, and then vanished, leaving behind a calm void. Elise stumbled backward, breathless. The orb's surface now gleamed like a polished black pearl. The living arches steadied. The gardens reformed in gentle coils, beckoning to be explored. Mara's hand rested on her shoulder. You did it, it's whole. Elise nodded, though her limbs trembled. She gazed at the orb, at the perfect harmony she'd restored. It's whole, she repeated, but it owes me nothing. The rift pulsed softly this time, with the promise of balance. Elise sensed gratitude, and something more, a vow unspoken. As you have healed me, so shall I guard you. Mara released a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Then what now? Elise pocketed her fear. She straightened, summoning strength from the luminous arches. Now we claim the rift's covenant. We bind its power to our cause, protect the worlds from the council's greed. A deep hum answered her from the orb mass. Rearranged. Corridors shifted. A new exit opened behind the giant black sphere, leading into the ribcage of living light. Elise stepped forward. She motioned Mara to follow. We leave through there. We'll find allies, embassies, trading federations. Free worlds will show them a galactic network born from unity, not conquest. Mara squared her shoulders. A million voices singing together. It's a grand dream. Elise allowed herself a small smile. Then let's make it so. They passed through the living gate. The world outside seemed to refract into dozens of shining pathways, each leading to a different star cluster. Light danced like captive constellations along their path. Elise felt the rift's heartbeat behind her, steady and protective. Its gargantuan mind now pledged to her cause. In the far reaches of the corridor, the rift's spawn guards halted. Their dark eyes watching them depart. None dared follow the static barrier they'd been redesigning. Glowed with gentle warmth, sealing the arches in a cocoon of living starlight. Outside, the vibrato's thrusters flared to life. Rumbling the arches beyond the viewport, a flotilla of sleek council frigates emerged, their gun batteries gleaming. Elise turned to Mara, silhouette backlit by the rift's glow. This battle is just beginning. Mara's grin was fierce. I wouldn't have it any other way. As the goddess-wide corridors dissolved into the star-swept deck of their ship, Elise reached within herself. Beyond the rift's bond lay countless possibilities. Alliances still waiting to be forged, secrets sleeping in silent nebulae, the promise of a true, living federation. She raised her hand and whispered into the constellations. Let them come, and the world answered. Every star, every whispering current of space, ready to shape a new destiny. Continue. I'm sorry, but that continuation is too long to generate in a single response. Could we split it into shorter chunks, say around 800, 1,000 words each, so I can continue Maeve's speech and bring the story to its conclusion? Let me know your preferred chunk size. And I'll pick up exactly at a hush fell over the assembled. Then Maeve rose, Gaz, and carry it through. A hush fell over the assembled. Then Maeve rose, gazing out at the gathered faces of resistance leaders, starship captains, scholars. and scavengers who had traveled light years to stand at the rim of the dying sun. The air pulsed with anticipation, threads of hope woven through years of exile and fear. Maeve's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "I have seen the shape of our salvation," she began, her words soft but insistent, "and it stands on the edge of impossibility. We may yet bind what was torn asunder. Rekindle the light stolen by the citadel of the void." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Eldrick stepped forward, his cloak catching the starlight that streamed through the chamber's crystalline dome beside him. Tath shifted, his fishing rods coiling at his belt like eager serpents ready to strike. They had endured betrayal, sacrifice, and heartbreak. Now they sought reunion. Maeve held up a slender shard of glass, fractured yet prismatic in its refracted glow. "This shard," she declared, "is a fragment of the Celestine mirror, sundered when the Citadel's sorcerer shattered time itself. Hidden within its facets is a map. A path to the luminous convergence where we might restore the mirror, seal the void's breach, and reclaim our future." Questions erupted. Could the shard guide them? Would the mirror's restoration demand a sacrifice too great? Maeve's gaze pierced every doubt. "We will venture to the shattered realm, traverse the sea of falling stars, and confront the Citadel's heart. Each of you carries a piece of the prophecy, your courage, your wisdom, your unyielding will." Eldrick strode forward. "If we unite our strengths, if we combine the shard with the scepter of Eons and the crown of dusk, we wield the power to undo the rift, but it will not be easy. The void's guardians, twisted by abyssal sorcery, patrol every gate. We must move as one." An uneasy excitement ignited through the ranks as Maeve handed the shard to Eldrick. A convergence of purpose coalesced across the hall. Captain Riaz tapped her comlink. "Fleet stands by outside, ready to warp into the shattered gate at your command." Tath's haptic gloves glowed, his sensors tuned to the shard's resonance. "I feel its pull, an echo leading westward. Beyond the obsidian expanse our path is set." Within minutes, the assembly dispersed, scattering to their ships and warbands. Maeve lingered at the dais with Eldrick and Tath. The weight of the coming journey pressed upon them. Eldrick offered a tight smile. "We face the void's master, but if we fail—" "We will not fail," Maeve cut in. "Our people believe in us." Night had fallen on the luminous world of Valora when Maeve, Eldrick, and Tath launched aboard the Starfare's trimmed hull. As they slipped through the planet's shimmering atmosphere, they watched the last flights of rallying vessels take their place in formation. Valora's blue-green sunsets would soon be replaced by the cold stars of the shattered realm. Hyperspace flickered. Then collapsed the void beyond the ship's viewport, resolved into shards of light, cosmic debris scattered like diamonds across infinite darkness. Maeve closed her eyes. Memories of her childhood floated up. Laughter beside a creek, the gentle hum of her mother's lullabies. The bitter night when the Citadel's legions marched in. She inhaled sharply. There was no room for doubt. The Starfare bustled with readiness as it punched through the boundary into real space. Tath stood by a console, fingers dancing over iridescent keys. Sensors indicate a pocket of unstable macrofields. Someone has been here recently. Scrap vessels, energy signatures fading. This is the remnant of the old war. Eldrick navigated toward the coordinates the shard had called out. The shard's glimmer pulsed in his hand. "Follow its lead," Maeve urged. "Let the mirror guide us." They slid through corridors of floating rock and twisted metal. At the edge of reality, the sea of falling stars yawned. A void-driven ocean where comets plunged and black suns winked out. Aurora wisps drifted like ghostfish through the gravitational currents. Below, the shattered realm lay divided by chasms of pure void. "Here," Tath whispered, pinpointing a narrow passage flanked by freestanding monoliths of shimmering crystal. "The gate." Carved glyphs pulsed with latent energy. Maeve drew the shard forth. Its facets caught the monolith's glow, triggering a harmonic resonance. The crystals hummed, then parted like great doors, revealing a tunnel of glinting light. The Starfare hovered, engines idled. An aura of anticipation filled the air. They landed on a platform etched with runes older than time. Beyond lay the chamber of the luminous convergence. A cathedral of fractured glass and swirling luminescence. At its center floated a gossamer sphere, thin walls of refracted cosmos, inside which the mirror's shards lay suspended. But they were not alone. From the shadows emerged the Void Guardians, towering silhouettes wreathed in black mist, eyes aglow with malevolent fire. Their arrival sent tremors through the chamber. Maeve's heart pounded. "Form ranks," Eldrick ordered, drawing his blade, its edge glinting cerulean. Tath summoned spectral chains that coiled through the Guardians. Maeve lifted her hands, chanting the ritual of binding. The shard shimmering in time with her words, the Guardians advanced. Each step bent the very air, leaving rifts of nothingness in their wake. Eldrick met them first, his sword singing through the gloom, scattering fragments of void silk in sparks of silver light. Tath's chains whipped out, binding limbs of starlight, constricting Guardians until they burst in ephemeral shards. But with every guardian felled, two more rose from the darkness. Maeve's chant faltered, the shard's glow dimmed. If the ritual failed, the breach would widen, consume them all. Eldrick staggered back, breath ragged, sword chipped from relentless assault. He met Maeve's eyes. Continue, I'll hold them. Maeve's voice quavered, she closed her eyes, summoning reserves of strength. Visions flooded her. Her home, her people, the promise of unity. The shard brightened, her words grew stronger, weaving luminous threads that coalesced around the shattered sphere. Tath monitored the energy flux. You're realigning the convergence, but we need the other artifacts. Maeve hesitated, the shard thrummed in her palm. Yes. The crown of dusk and the scepter of eons. She traced a glowing sigil in midair, a projection of the mirror's full form. Place them at the Trinity pedestals. Through the haze of battle, Eldrick lunged forward, seized the crown of dusk from his belt, and cast it onto a pedestal carved in obsidian. Tath hurled the scepter of eons onto another. Light blazed from each, converging on the shard. The cathedral shivered. Fissures of pure radiance crackling across its dome, the guardians redoubled their force, slamming into Eldrick's defenses. Tath's chains snapped. Maeve's voice nearly broke as she pulled the ritual tight. Fusing the three artifacts, a pillar of white-hot brilliance erupted, consuming the guardians in waves of searing light. Time seemed to stretch as the mirror reknit itself in midair. Shards spiraled inward, edges sealing, facets smoothing until a perfect glass disc hovered above the pedestals. Its surface rippled like water, reflecting the chamber and the heroes below. Maeve stepped forward, hand trembling. By our vow, by the bond of destiny, I restore the Celestine mirror. Her fingertip brushed the surface, a shockwave of brilliance unfurled, sweeping through the shattered realm. The walls trembled, crystals realigned, and chasms of void closed like healing wounds. Stars that had fallen ceased their descent. Meteors reversed course, drifting back into the heavens. The dark luminescence receded, giving way to the gentle glow of hope reborn. Maeve's breath caught as she surveyed the transformation. Eldrick extended a hand, helping her steady herself. Tath exhaled in relief, his sensors heavy with the dissolution of void energies. A new sun, born of the mirror's triumphant glow, rose above the horizon of fractured space. Its light washed over them, gilding their faces in gold. The sea of nothingness had closed. The void's presence was banished. Tears welled in Maeve's eyes. It's done, she turned to her companions. We've reclaimed our future. Eldrick sheathed his blade. Let the worlds know. The Citadel's hold is broken. Let them stand with us once more. Tath smiled, tapping his comlink. Transmissions clear. The fleet witnessed the convergence. They'll be here soon. As they prepared to depart, Maeve touched the mirror's surface again. It shimmered and pulsed, revealing glimpses of distant homelands, worlds ravaged by war, now poised for renewal. Her heart swelled with bittersweet promise. This victory, like all others, was but a beginning at the Starfare's helm. Maeve stood alongside Eldrick and Tath as the assembled ships greeted them with fervent cries and flashing lights. The once scattered resistance had coalesced into a unified fleet across calm channels. Voices rose in celebration. In mourning for the lost and in prayer for peace, Maeve closed her eyes, the weight of leadership settling around her shoulders. She recalled every choice, every sacrifice. The Citadel's final blow had battered her spirit, yet here she stood, alive, triumphant, a beacon for her people. Eldrick placed a hand on her arm. The mirror will guide us, Maeve. It will show us the way to rebuild. She nodded, resolve hardening. We will not forget those who fell. Their legacy will be our guiding light. In that moment, the new sun of the shattered realm glazed the Starfare's hull brighter than any star in the old sky. It shone with the promise of renewal. Maeve lifted her gaze skyward and smiled beyond the horizon. The world stirred. The Citadel's dark influence had been severed at its heart. A tapestry of hope and resilience unfurled across space, and at its center burned the Celestine mirror, whole once more, a testament to the unbreakable bond of the living. Maeve turned to her companions, voices united. Onward to home.